Alright, so I'm up in San Francisco at Jackson and Jones Street. Gonna do a cityscape here. Light is changing quickly. Let me show you what I'm thinking. So here's the view. I'm gonna do a square composition and I'm gonna include the car in the foreground, but I'm gonna paint the car in complete shadow, which was how it was when I decided to paint this scene. Obviously the light is moving quickly, so I'm gonna get to work. Alright, I'm painting on a 14 by 14 inch panel today. My usual palette of colors. I've got phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, yellow ochre. We've got a bit of cadmium yellow lemon left over from a previous painting. And I've also squeezed out some permanent red medium from Rembrandt, just in case I need to paint some taillights. Sketching in burnt sienna and just looking at big shapes. Putting in the trees that line the street, and there's another tree right here, and then some buildings right here. And I want this building actually to be a little bit bigger, come up a little bit higher, and like that. Some trees at the top of the road here. This side here is all in shadow. Quickly blocked out a few cars like that, and then I sketched out this car here in the foreground. This car I need to paint kind of quickly because it is, you know, I want it to be in shadow, but it's actually in light. I'm about to lose it, but I can use the shadows right along the side for color. All right, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson here to block in the shadows. I'm just squinting at the scene to reduce it to simple shapes. I just want to block in these shadows as quickly as possible, just because I'm going to lose them. So at this point, I'm just looking for an interesting light dark pattern. It came down too low with this. This actually goes more like that. And of course, here goes the car. And that's all I've got. Once I've got this shadow pattern in place, then I should be home free, or not home free, but, and there goes the car. I do get a lot of requests on this channel to paint cityscapes, and I enjoy painting cityscapes in plein air, but obviously there are a lot of challenges, and then it's an additional challenge to film the process, just because there's a lot of noise and these paintings tend to be a little bit more technical. When I first started doing plein air cityscapes, it was really difficult to simplify, which is what you've got to do, and then I decided that the only way to do a plein air cityscape is to break down the scene into light and dark and do that as quickly as possible, and don't think about detail at all. So what I'm looking for is an interesting light dark pattern, and then once I've got that established, then I'll just go into these shapes and modify the colors and values, or, you know, fine-tune the colors and values, and try not to mess up this this pattern here, this light dark pattern. Got a dark green mixture here, using ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, and some alizarin crimson. All right, so I added some cadmium yellow medium and a little more alizarin crimson for the light portion of the trees, but I still want to keep the trees dark, so I'm comparing the value of the trees against the sky. So if you look at those trees, they still look really dark, even the light portion. These trees have a lot more red in them, so I added some more alizarin crimson to the mix. I think this tree over here is a plum tree, so it's kind of a reddish color. The dark portion, I'm just using a dark purplish blue, alizarin crimson and ultramarine, and then I'll put, for the lighter portion, I will add some red to the mix and lighten it up a bit. All right, so I added titanium white and a little more alizarin crimson for this portion. All right, so this whole area is one big group of buildings, and they're kind of a light value in here. There are some shifts in color and value within this shape, but I'm going to look at all these buildings as one shape. If I were to paint individual buildings, I would be here all day, and this painting would be, it just would be a miserable process. And ultimately, I think the painting would not come out as well All right, so I had to quickly focus on these cars here, and I didn't film the process just because I'm sort of in survival mode. But basically what I'm doing is just squinting at the cars and looking for shapes. So it's no different from the bigger shapes. I just squinted and I saw there's a bit of light coming through the windshield. There's a dark pattern here, dark pattern underneath. And then I'm getting back periodically just to see how it reads. Oftentimes I'll need to straighten up some of the lines on the car just to make sure that they, look like cars. But these two cars are in the foreground, so they need to be drawn correctly, but the ones in the distance can be sort of suggested. This is the most difficult part of the painting right here. I have been loading on thick paint and painting really quickly. All right, so now I'm putting in the sky. I'm using ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and titanium white. And I want to make sure that the value of the sky is dark enough that the buildings appear to be in light and also the street appears to be in light, because those are the lightest portions of the painting. So, and then I also want the blue to play against the warmer tones. So I'm going for saturation here as well. I'm thinning the paint with liquid for now, but not as thin as I often go. It's still kind of thick, actually. This portion right here is lighter, so I added some titanium white to the brush. Something like that. All right, so for the street, I've got a mixture of titanium white and ultramarine blue. Just a very light mixture, just a slight amount of ultramarine. And then I added some yellow ochre to warm it up. I find that getting the right color for streets is difficult because often there's quite a bit of blue in the mixture, but then if you add yellow, it can turn green, which is not what you want. Basically what I'm after is a warm gray, and I think this color is a good start. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow ochre to this just to make sure that it looks like it's in sunlight. And some areas, like the sidewalks, are definitely quite a bit warmer, so I'll be adding even more yellow. So I've used the number 6 natural bristle flat for almost this whole painting, and at this point I'm using loaded strokes, so I am using thick paint, loading up the brush, and I'm not being too careful because I don't want it to look careful. I want it to look like a painting. So I'm kind of blurring some of the edges here. All right, for the buildings here, I'm starting with titanium white with a little bit of yellow ochre in it, just to indicate the light portions of the buildings. I'll be modifying these colors as well, but this is a good starting point. Again, I'm being careful not to mess up the value pattern here. And up at the top here, I've used the same mixture, but I just added a little bit of burnt sienna to make the mixture a little bit more towards orange for these buildings up top. All right, so at this point I've got the whole panel covered, and as I mentioned, I've been using thick paint, so I'm not going to do that much more to this painting. Maybe just add a few little details to define things like the buildings. All right, so I'm adding some titanium white with ultramarine blue just to have some warm against cool here. Where the street gets shiny, it sort of reflects the sky. Maybe little bits of it in here as well. All right, so this is a grouping of cars here. I just painted one simple shape, and now I'm looking for highlights to give it a little bit of definition. And the same is true over here. At this point, I'm tempted to use a smaller brush, but I'm still using the number 6 natural bristle flat, just to keep some consistency in the look of the painting, and also so I won't get too careful with the brush strokes. All right, so here is what I finished up with. This painting took just under 2 hours to complete. I did finish it on site. The process was the same as usual, just scrubbed in some big shapes using thinned paint, and I was thinning with liquid. And then once I had the big shapes in place, I came in with thicker paint and looked for more accurate colors and values. I used a number 6 natural bristle flat for most of this painting. I did get out a number 4 synthetic flat at the very end just to put in some windows. I like the synthetic flat for things like windows because the brush is more precision. It's more of a squared off stroke, so it works really well for windows. This is the first time I've experimented putting a car like this in the foreground, trying to have some sort of foreground presence, but not have it be too overwhelming. I don't want something that's going to block the view into the distance, but I do think that it does help create a sense of depth. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos. It's much appreciated, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.